Everyone, it's your boy Matt. This video is a recount of what happened at Rogue Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu regarding the development of a fascist cult and how my interaction with fascism destroyed the best years of my life, and what my personal fight against these fascists has cost me. And I'm making this because needs to be expressed that I've done some pretty fucking important and heroic things, and it's time that that was acknowledged. And the evil that I have had to fight also needs to be acknowledged as evil. Okay? So around, I think 4 or 5 years ago, I moved to Canberra. I'm starting to lose track of time. The best years of my life have been stolen by these evil men. The first time, when I was 19 years old, I was in the Navy. I was actually quite badly abused. And what happened is that I came to Canberra. There was a man called Michael Armstrong who was doing some veteran art stuff. His background was in offensive cyber warfare, and he also used to be a signals person who was attached to the commando regiment. Okay. But I thought he was a really cool and interesting guy at the time. But he's literally a fascist. He is an actual fascist. He is a Nazi. Actually, Nazism's a different thing, but he is a genuine fascist. And I didn't know that at the time. And I trained in his gym, and a lot of the people who were associated with him worked either in Army Signals or in cyber warfare and similar things at the Australian Signals Directorate. And what would happen is I was being abused online by these people on social media, but it was more sinister than that because they also had access to our cyber warfare infrastructure. And what happened is that they made a game and they worked collaboratively as a gang to bully me and gang stalk me basically through social media and real life, and worked collaboratively to bring me down. And the poverty I live in is a direct result of them. I was not able to keep down a job which in psychology, which I came to Canberra for, because I was already stressed out of my fucking mind, and I had a group of these juvenile men who were abusing me constantly, and were desperately jealous of me because I was doing well financially. I had a job which they felt was very prestigious, and I was better at them at their hobby martial art, and I got along very well for a time with Michael. I thought he was something he's not. He is actually a deep, and I grossly miscalculated his integrity and moral character. Grossly. Now, what happened first is that there was a guy in the gym called Lewis. Lewis and Dylan, there was another one. Dylan formerly worked at ASD, and then he did cybersecurity at other places. Lewis was a manager at ASD, and he was really into Jocko Willink. He was really into these podcasters, and the dramas which happen in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu promotion, such as MMA and these things, sort of became the standard culture for the gym. Michael did a terrible job of setting expectations and providing, helping these people develop resilience. It's a combat sport, it's submission wrestling, and put plainly, Lewis is a little bitch. And using different terminologies is inappropriate. He truly is pathetic. And he was not willing to learn how to become resilient. And because his ego was deflated, because I was doing well for myself in my personal life and I was better at him at jiu-jitsu, this man sought out to destroy my life. Okay? And because Michael had intentionally created a fascist power structure where your belt rank and how was associated with your position of authority in the gym, such that your belt was not a description of skill, but a social hierarchy, and your skill at jiu-jitsu, which is associated with your belt rank, gave you power in this fascist community. Lewis found himself in a position of inferiority, and he became extremely jealous. Okay? So that's one part of it. Now, what happened is that I also worked at this time for a man at one point called Donald McGaskill. Now, Donald McGaskill was a con man who pretended to be an ABA therapist, okay? And as I was working for him, I realized that the more I worked and the harder I worked and the greater and everything I did, it just increased the frequency of fraud that I would be committing, because I realized that the guy could not teach me how to do the job because he did not know how to do it. And I quit that job, but Donald McGaskill, because of the way he oriented himself, he had a personality disorder, he was autistic and narcissistic. He contacted my former divisional officer in the Navy, he contacted Michael Armstrong and everyone who I might have an association with, and he set out to try and inflict as much damage on me as possible. Now, Donald McGaskill, and at the same time, and this was happening throughout this, my former divisional officer, a man called Stephen Cole, who was involved in abuse of me when I was 19, not in some weird sexual way. I was at the Naval College and probably shouldn't have been there. And that abuse led to a lifelong alteration in my development. Okay? Now, this person who was involved in some of the abuse of me as a kid then came back into my life, began abusing me over social media while I'm running a social media business called Taco, which I've been trying to get remuneration for. Now, I have to be online, okay? But so I have these people who are using the cyber warfare infrastructure, who are collaborating together and actively trying to ruin my life. Okay? This is something which happened. I was forced into a position where I had to fight fascism. The same way that the Jews had to, the French resistance had to, I have had to fight fascists in our government, in our intelligence arm of it. Okay? And I have won. I have crushed these bitches. And they now know it. And what I'm hoping for is a coup de grace, and to have these people sent to prison, or at the very least, for them to lose their security clearances and access to our cyber warfare infrastructure. That must happen to Lewis, okay? Additionally, I don't think you should be allowed to be associated with Michael Armstrong and maintain a security clearance. I think this organization needs to be seen similar to a terrorist group or something similar. These are not things I know if I'm going to get or not, but I would be amazed if Lewis keeps his job after what he has done. But the job security these fuckwits get in Signals is incredible. Like, you'd have to commit a terrible act in a very exposed way to get fired from the Australian Signals Directorate. Now, what happened is that at one point, at the beginning of an escalation cycle out of and when I still thought Michael had a little bit of self-awareness and decency and integrity, and I now know this is not the case, okay? He lacks the ability to be honest with himself about who he is and what he is, and if he did, he would be horrified, right? He would not be able to like himself if he knew what he was. Now, what I did is I threatened Michael because all these different people were abusing me in a coordinated and systematized way, and I needed someone who was my inside person. This is a strategy I used twice while fighting the Australian Signals Directorate. Okay? And when I used it on Michael, it was less effective than when I used it on a person called, on Lewis using Raj. So what I did is that I threatened Michael, and I tried to get these people to have a very clear command structure where Michael was involved in it. And my hope was is that he would see what was going on and then go, oh yeah, this is terrible, stop doing that, stop abusing him, right? You're being horrific. But that's not how Michael sees the world. Michael sees the world as a place of structured hierarchy where he is at the top of it, right? And he saw me as someone who was beneath him through his fascist worldview. And because I was younger than he was, he decided that I must be brought back into the fold or something similar. What Michael did was terrible. The lack of awareness he had is horrific. Now Raj, what I did is that I trolled Lewis, and this was in self-defense. I do not usually abuse people on social media for the fun of it. I do not enjoy this. I've just had to become very fucking good at it. Is that I tricked him into hiring a friend of mine called Raj, and Raj ended up getting a job at the Australian Signals Directorate. Raj was a person who I can loosely say is a friend of mine, but she doesn't know much about me, and most of what she knows about me comes from her getting told by people who disliked me for stupid reasons when I was a much younger person. But I convinced this fuckwit into believing that this person was an expert on me, and because Lewis, the fuckwit, the stupid, malevolent piece of shit, Lewis needed to view me as a horrific person so that he could justify his anger towards me rather than developing integrity, resilience, and a little bit of fucking courage, all those fucking things which he worships in men like Jocko Willink, and these influencers whose dick he proverbially sucks. What he did is that instead of developing these things and going, hey, this guy was just better at me at wrestling, the deeply undeveloped shitfuck of an individual then attacked, hired Raj, and because Raj had some small issues with me, his delusions were somewhat validated, but I had a person on the inside. And what I then did is that I worked with Raj, we both have somewhat of a connection, and I was able to get Raj to advocate for me inside the Signals Directorate. Right? I got a fucking mole in your organization, bitch. And what Raj did is that Raj helped change the narrative for me. Now, what then happened is that at some point, a large amount of AI was used, and there was somewhat of a prank which Lewis played on me, which I thought was quite funny. But what's happened now is that a bogus charge was filed by me by the police, and the police now realize the situation. They have acknowledged that Michael is in the wrong, and they see him as an actual fascist, and he is now humiliated as well. So, I may now be able to get on to the next stage of my life, potentially having had to be at actual fucking war with my fucking government while in my own fucking country because some dickhead wanted to have a little fucking fascist little cult so he could feel special. Right? And I've lost years of my life and I'm not very happy about it. And I think I need to be acknowledged for what I have done. I am a motherfucking national hero, right? And I have crushed these bitches. Have a good day, everyone.